Hi, good afternoon. This is going to be the first video I make reading out loud. I recently posted on my Instagram stories asking people if they would be interested in hearing some stories read out loud because I really love reading to people that I care about. So I thought it would be a nice little practice for me and hopefully for some of you to hear some stories. I may try to tackle Harry Potter in parts, but for now I'm going to be reading a short story out of this book, Out on Main Street by Shani Mootoo. Shani Mootoo is a Trinidadian fiction writer. This collection came out in 1993, and yeah, I may read several stories from this. We'll see. Let me know if you enjoy it. Right now, I'm starting with the first story in the collection, which is called A Garden of Her Own. It's about, I would say, about 12 pages, I think. So, yeah, I hope that you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. And here we go. A north-facing balcony meant that no sunlight would enter there. A deep in the heart of the forest green pine tree, over-fertilized opulence extending its midriff, filled the view from the balcony. There was no window, only a glass sliding door, which might have let fresh air in and released second or third-hand air and the kinds of odors that build phantoms in stuffy apartments. But it remained shut. Not locked, but stuck shut from decades of other renters' black, oily grit and grime which had collected in the grooves of the sliding door's frame. Vijay knew that it would not budge up, down, or sideways. For the amount of rent the husband paid for this bachelor apartment, the landlord could not be bothered. She opened the hallway door to let the cooking lamb fat and garlic smells drift out into the hallway. She did not want them to burrow into the bed sheets, into towels and clothes crammed into the dented, cream-colored metal space-saver cupboard that she had to share with the husband. It was what all the other renters did too. Everyone's years of oil, sticky, burnt, overused, rancid oil, and of garlic, onions, and spices formed themselves into an impenetrable, nose-singeing, skin-stinging presence that lurked menacingly in the hall. Instead of releasing the lamb from the husband's apartment, opening the door allowed this larger phantom to barge its way in. Vijay, engulfed, slammed the door shut. She tilted her head to face the ceiling and breathed in hard, searching for air that had no smell, no weight. The husband was already an hour late for dinner. She paced the 12 strides back and forth from the balcony door to the hall door, glancing occasionally at the two table settings, stopping to straighten his knife, his fork, the napkin, the flowers, his knife, the fork, the napkin, the flowers. Her arms and legs tingled weakly, and her intestines filled up with beads of acid formed out of unease and fear. Seeing a smear of her fingerprint on the husband's knife, she picked it up and polished it on her t-shirt until it gleamed brilliantly, and she saw in it her mother's eyes looking back at her. Sunlight. I miss the sunlight. Yellow light and a sky ceiling miles high. Here, the sky sits on my head, heavy, gray, with snow and freezing rain. I miss being able to have doors and windows opened wide, never shut except sometimes in the rainy season. Rain, rain, pinging on, winging off the galvanized tin roof. But always warm rain. No matter how much it rained, it was always warm. And what about the birds? Flying in through the windows, how often? 2, 3 times a week? Sometimes even twice in a single day. In the shimmering heat, you could see them flying slowly, their mouths wide open as if crying out soundlessly. They would actually be flicking their tongues at the still air, gulping and panting, looking for a window to enter and a curtain rod to land on to cool off. But once they had cooled off and were ready to fly off again, they could never seem to focus on the window to fly through, and they would bang themselves against the walls and the light shade until they fell panicked and stunned. I was the one who would get the broom and push it gently up toward one of these birds after it looked like it had cooled off, and prod until it hopped onto the broom, and then I would lower it and reach from behind and cup the trembling in my hand. I can, right now, feel the life, the heat in the palm of my hand from the little body and the fright in its tremble. I would want to hold on to it, even think of placing it in a cage and looking after it, but something always held me back. I would put my mouth close to its ear and whisper calming shh, 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 and then take it, press to my chest, out the back door, and open my hand and wait for it to take its time, fluffing out right there in my open hand before flying away. But here, there were hardly any birds here, only that raucous, aggressive old crow that behaves as if it owns the scraggly pine tree it sits in across the street. This street is so noisy, every day, all day, and all night long, even on Sundays. Cars whiz by, ambulances and fire trucks pass screaming, and I think to myself, thank goodness it couldn't be going for anyone I know. I don't know anyone nearby. Too much quiet here, too shut off. Not even the sound of children playing in the street or the sound of neighbors talking to each other over fences. Conversations floating in through open windows, open bricks. Here, even when doors are open, people walk down hallways with their noses straight ahead, making a point of not glancing to even nod hello. Oh, this brings all kinds of images to my mind. The coconut tree outside my bedroom, brushing, scraping, swishing against the wall. Green-blue iridescent lizards clinging upside down to the ceiling above my bed. And dinner time. Mama's voice would find me wherever I was. Vijay, go and tell Cheryl to put food on the table. Your father coming home now. Standing in one place at the top of her meager voice, she would call us one by one. Bindra, is dinner time. Bindra, why you hardened so, boy? Dinner getting cold. Turn off that TV right now. Shanti, come girl, leave what you're doing and come eat. Vashti, go and tell Papa dinner ready and then come and sit down. Sitting down, eating together, talking together. Conversations with no boundaries, no false politeness, no need to impress Mama or Papa. But that's not how it was always. Sometimes Papa didn't come home till long after supper time. Mama would make us eat, but she would wait for him. Sometimes he wouldn't come for days, and she would wait for him then too. But there were always flowers from the garden on the table. Pink and yellow gerberas, ferns, ginger lilies. That was your happiness, eh, Mama? That garden outside? And when there were blossoms, you and I would go outside together. You showed me how to angle the garden scissors so that the plant wouldn't hurt for too long. We would bring in the bundle of flowers and greenery with their fresh-cut garden smell and little flying bugs and spiders, and you would show me how to arrange them for a centerpiece or a corner table or a floor piece. The place would look so pretty. Thanks for showing that to me, Mama. Mama, he's never brought me any flowers, not even a dandelion. I don't want him to ask how much these cost. Don't ask me who sent them. No one sent them. I bought them myself, with my own money. My own money. He's never given me anything. Only money for groceries. Late again. I jabbed this lamb with 1 trillion little gashes and stuffed a clove of garlic in each one with your tongue, your taste buds in mind. I spent half the day cooking this meal, and you will come late and eat it after the juices have hardened to a candle wax finish, as if it were nothing but a microwave dinner. I want a microwave oven. Mama, why did you wait to eat? If I were to eat now, would you, Papa, he think I'm a bad wife? Why did you show me this, Mama? I must not nag. Vijay remained sleeping until the fan in the bathroom woke her. It sputtered raucously like an airplane engine starting up, escalating in time to fine whizzing, lifting off into the distance. 5:30, Saturday morning. She had fretted through most of the night, twisting, arching her body, drawing her legs up to her chest, to the husband's chest, rolling and nudging him, hoping that he would awaken to pull her body into his and hold her there. She wanted to feel the heat of his body along the length of hers, his arms pressing her to him, or his palm placed flat on her lower belly, massaging, touching her. He responded to her fidgeting once, and she moved closer to him to encourage him, but he turned his naked back to her and continued his guttural inhaling, sounding exactly like her father. Eventually, Vijay's eyes, burning from salty tears that had filled and dampened the pillow under her cheek, fluttered shut, and she slept deep and dreamless until the fan awakened her. When the sound of the shower water snapping at the enamel tub was muffled against his body, she pulled herself over to lie in and smell his indentation in the tired foam mattress. She inhaled, instead, the history of the mattress: unwashed hair, dying skin, old and rancid sweat, not the smell she wanted to nestle in. Neither would the indentation cradle her. She could feel the protruding shape of the box spring beneath the foam. She debated whether to get up and thanklessly make his toast and tea, or pretend not to have awakened, the potential for blame nagging at her. She slid back to her side of his bed, the other side of the line that he had drawn down the middle with the cutting edge of his outstretched hand. Vijay pulled her knees to her chest and hugged them. When the shower stopped, she hastily straightened herself out and put her face inside the crack between the bed and the rough wall. Cold from the wall transferred itself onto her cheek, and layers upon layers of human smells trapped behind cream-colored paint pierced her nostrils. Vijay was aware of the husband's every move as she lay in his bed. Water from the kitchen tap pounded the sink basin, then attacked the metal floor of the kettle, gradually becoming muffled and high-pitched as the kettle filled up. He always filled it much more than was necessary for 1 cup of tea, which he seldom drank. The blow-dryer, first on the highest setting, then dropped 2 notches to the lowest and off. The electric razor, whizzing up and down his cheek, circling his chin, the other cheek grazing his neck. Snip, snip, and little dark half-moon hairs from his nostrils and his sideburns cling to the rim of the white sink basin. Wiping up, scrubbing, making spotless these areas and others before he returns are her evidence that she is diligent, that she is indeed her mother's daughter. At this point in the routine, she always expects a handsome aftershave cologne to fill the little bachelor apartment, to bring a moment of frivolity and romance into the room. In one favorite version of her memories, this is what normally happened in her parents' bedroom at precisely this point. But the husband would only pat on his face a stinging, watery liquid with the faintest smell of lime, a smell that evaporated into nothingness the instant it touched his skin. She held herself tensely, still in the crack between the bed and the wall, as he made his way into the dark corner that he called the bedroom. The folding doors of the closet squeaked open. A shirt slid off a hanger, leaving it dangling and tinkling against the metal rod. Vijay heard the shirt that she had ironed, stretched mercilessly tight across the ironing board, the tip of the iron with staccato spurts of steam sniffing out the crevice of every seam, mimicking the importance with which her mother had treated this task. Being pulled against his body and his hand sliding down the stiff front as he buttoned it. Then there was a space empty of his sounds. The silence made the walls of her stomach contract like a closed-up accordion. Her body remained rigid. Her heart sounded as if it had moved right up into her ears, thundering methodically, and that was all that she could hear. She struggled with herself to be calm so that she could know where he was and what he was doing. Not knowing made her scalp want to unpeel itself. Then the bed sagged as he kneeled on it, leaned across, and brushed his mouth on the back of her head. His full voice had no regard for her sleep or the time of morning. He said, "Happy birthday. I left $20 on the table for you. Buy yourself a present." The thundering subsided, and her heart rolled and slid, down, low down, and came to rest between her thighs. She turned over with lethargic elegance, as if she were just waking up, stretching out her back like a cat, but the apartment door was already being shut and locked from the outside. The streets here are so wide. I hold my breath as I walk across them, 6 lanes wide. What if the lights change before I get to the other side? You have to walk so briskly, not only when you're crossing a wide street, but even on the sidewalk. Otherwise, people pass you and then turn back and stare at you, shaking their heads. And yet, I remember Mama telling us that fast walking, hurrying, was very unladylike. I yearn for friends, my own friends, not his, but I'm afraid to smile at strangers. So often we huddled up in Mama's big bed and read the newspapers about things that happened to women up here. We read about women who suddenly disappeared, and months later their corpses would be found, having been raped and dumped. And we also read about serial murders. The victims were almost always women who had been abducted from the street by strangers in some big North American city. Mama and Papa warned me when I was leaving to come up here, not to make eye contact with strangers, because I wouldn't know whose eyes I might be looking into, or what I was encouraging, unknowingly. It's not like home, they said, where everybody knows everybody. No bird sounds. There are not quite so many different kinds of birds here. Yes, Papa, yes, I can just hear you saying to stop this nonsense, all this thinking about home, that I must think of here as my home now, but I haven't yet left you and Mama. I know now that I will never fully leave, nor will I ever truly be here. You felt so close, Papa, when you phoned this morning and asked, like you have every past year, how was the birthday girl? You said that in your office you often look at the calendar pictures of autumn fields of bales of hay, lazy rivers meandering near brick-red farmhouses, and country roads with quaint white wooden churches with red steeples, and you think that that's what my eyes have already enjoyed. It's all so beautiful, Papa, I said, and knowing you, you probably heard what I wasn't saying. Thanks for not pushing further. I couldn't tell you that he is working night and day to make it, to get ahead, to live like the other men he works with. That he is always thinking about this, and everything else is frivolous right now. So we haven't yet been for that drive in the country to see the pictures and the calendars pinned on the wall above your desk. He doesn't have time for dreaming, but I must dream, or else I find it difficult to breathe. At home, the fence around our house and the garden was the furthest point that I ever went to on my own. From the house, winding in and out of the dracenias and philodendrons that I planted with Mama many Julys ago, feeling the full, firm limbs of the pui going as far as the hibiscus and jasmine fence and back into the house again. Any further away from the house than that, and the chauffeur would be driving us. And now, just look at me. I am out in a big city on my own. I wish you all could see me. I wish we could be doing this together. Papa, you remember, don't you, when you used to bring home magazines from your office? And I would flip through them, quickly looking for full-page pictures of dense black-green tropical mountains or snow-covered bluish-white ones. Ever since those first pictures, I have dreamt of mountains, of touching them with the palms of my hands, of bicycling in them, and of hiking. Even though I never canoed on a river or a big lake with no shores, I knew what it must feel like. I can feel what it is to ride rapids like they do in National Geographic magazines. Cold river spray and drenching, sliding, tossing, crashing. I still dream of bicycling across a huge continent. I used to think, if only I lived in North America. But here I am, in this place where these things are supposed to happen, in the midst of so much possibility, and for some reason my dreams seem even further away, just out of reach. It's just not quite as simple as being here. This land stretches on in front of me, behind me, and forever. My back feels exposed, naked, so much land behind and no fence ahead. Except that I must cook dinner tonight. What if I just kept walking and never returned? I could walk far away, to another province, change my name, cut my hair. After a while, I would see my face on a poster in a grocery store, along with all the other missing persons. The problem is that I wouldn't even be able to phone home and speak with Mama, or Papa, or Bindra and Vashti without being tracked and caught, and then who knows what. Well, this is the first birthday I've ever spent alone, but next time we speak on the phone, I'll be able to tell you that I went out for a very long walk alone. I think I will do this every day, well, maybe every other day, and each time I will go a new route and a little further. I will know this place in order to own it, but still I will never really leave you. Mama, Papa, Vashti, Bindra, Shanti. Mama, Papa, Vashti, Bindra, Shanti. Mama, Papa, Vashti, Bindra, Shanti. 24 years of Sundays, of eating 3 delightfully noisy, lengthy meals together, going to the beach or for long drives with big pots of rice, chicken, and peas, and chocolate cake, singing, "Michael, row your boat ashore," and You Are My Sunshine, doing everything in tandem with her brother and sisters and Mama and Papa. This particular characteristic of Sundays was etched deeply in her veins. Not all Sundays were happy ones, but she recently seems to have forgotten that. It would be her 24th Sunday here, the 24th week of marriage. The only Sunday since the marriage that the husband had taken off and spent in his apartment was 6 weeks ago. And since he needed to spend that day alone, Vijay agreed to go to the library for at least 3 hours. Before she left the house, she thought she would use the opportunity to take down recipes for desserts, but once she began walking down the street, she found herself thinking about rivers and mountains. She bypassed the shelves with all the cooking books and homemaking magazines and found herself racing towards valleys, glaciers, canoeing, rapids, and the like. She picked up a magazine about hiking and mountaineering, looked at the equipment advertisements, read incomprehensible jargon about techniques for climbing. After about 40 minutes, not seeing herself in any of the magazines, she became less enthusiastic and eventually frustrated and bored. She looked at her watch every 15 minutes or so, and then she started watching the second hand go around and counting each and every second in her head. When 3 hours had passed, she remembered that she had said at least 3 hours, and she walked home slowly, stopping to window shop and checking her watch until an extra 20 minutes had passed. The strength of her determination that they not spend this Sunday apart warded off even a hint of such a suggestion from the husband. What she really wanted to do was to go for a long drive up to a glacier in the nearby mountains. That way she would have him to herself for at least 5 hours. But he had worked several 12-hour shifts that week and needed to rest in his apartment. She went to the grocery store, to the gardening section, and bought 6 packages of flower seeds, 6 packages of vegetable seeds, bags of soil, fertilizer, a fork, and a spade, and purple plastic watering can, and a score of nursery trays. She brought it all home in a taxi, enough to keep her busy and in his apartment for an entire Sunday. She was becoming adept at finding ways to get what she wanted. He never asked, and Vijay did not tell that from her allowance she had paid a man from the hardware store to come over and fix the balcony sliding door. She stooped on the balcony floor, scooping earth into nursery trays. He sat reading the newspaper, facing the balcony in his big, sagging gold armchair that he had bought next door at a church basement sale for $5. She was aware that he was stealing glances at her as she bent over her garden in the making. I wore this shirt, no bra, am stooping, bending over here to reveal my breasts to you. Look at them, feel something. I might as well be sharing this apartment with a brother or a roommate. She feels his hand on her waist, leading her from behind to the edge of his bed. Her body is crushed under his as he slams himself against her from behind, grunting. She holds her breath, taut against his weight and the pain, but she will not disturb his moment. She hopes that the next moment will be hers. She waits with the bedsheet pulled up to her chin. The toilet flushes, and shortly after she hears newspaper pages being turned in the sagging $5 gold armchair. Later, deep sleep breathing and low snoring from the bedroom fills the apartment, dictating her movements. She sits on the green and yellow shag carpet, leaning against the foot of the husband's armchair, in front of the snowy black and white television, watching a French station turned down low enough not to awaken him. Something about listening to a language that she does not understand comforts her, gives her companionship in a place where she feels like a foreigner. She is beginning to be able to repeat advertisements in French. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to reading another story soon. Hope you're all doing well. Bye.